Good morning. Thanks for joining us for She's a Force of Nature today. I'm Alyssa Yapel, and I will be helping to moderate. So if you have questions for our ladies from our Division of Geological Survey, who we will be interviewing, please utilize the Q&A box. We want to hear from you, so feel free to ask us any questions you have. I'm going to introduce you quickly to Katie Gerber, who is with our Natural Resource Women's Network, to tell you what that's all about, because they help us put on these webinars. So go ahead, Katie.
Hi, the Natural Resources Women's Network is a group of employees here at OhioDNR who have come together to provide networking and professional development opportunities for the women who work here. We also focus on getting the word out to young women about all the amazing career opportunities that OhioDNR has to offer.
Awesome. And we also have with us Madison Perry, and Madison is a graphic artist with the Division of Geological Survey. She will be presenting in just a bit. We have Brittany Perrick, who is a geologist. Trying to send you live, Brittany. There you are. Who's a geologist with the Division of Geological Survey. And Brittany's going to be our first interviewee today. And Jackie Heider, who you see now, is going to be interviewing Brittany. So go ahead, Jackie, we can get started.
All right, so first of all, I want to thank Brittany and Madison both for joining on today's webinar. So Brittany, can you please state your hometown, educational background, and your responsibilities at OhioDNR?
Yeah. I am from Findlay, Ohio, which is up in Hancock County in the northwest part of the state. I have a Bachelor of Science in Geological Sciences and a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing from Ohio University. And at OhioDNR, I kind of have my fingers in a lot of different pies. I work on superficial mapping, on outreach, which includes fossil shows, geowalk tours, webinars. In the not COVID times. And then I do a lot of karst mapping, which is sinkholes, springs, caves, things like that. I'm starting to help out with our groundwater monitoring network. And then also our social media presence on Facebook and a bunch of other different little things.
So what can you talk about for hours, or in other words, what do you geek out over in relation to natural resources?
Okay, definitely sinkholes and like the karst spring that we have in Ohio. I didn't come into my job with that as my focus, but it kind of evolved to being what I love most about it. So if you give me time, I will pull up our karst interactive map and I'll show you all of my favorite sinkholes and talk about why they're really cool to me, and wish I could take you to them, but I can't.
I love that response. Sinkholes is the last thing I ever would have thought about. So that is absolutely wonderful. So in terms of unrelated to OhioDNR, where would we find you on a Saturday afternoon?
Oh, well, recently I started a 3,000 piece puzzle, so I've been doing that a lot lately. But I do a lot of, I'm starting to get into leather crafting, so I've been doing that a lot at home. I do like going on hikes and camping. It just depends on the weather, the weekend, how I feel. And then also I miss going to my local coffee shops and hanging out, but I can't do that right now, so I stay at home.
What is the most exciting project you are currently working on?
Currently, I'm trying to wrap up some superficial mapping in different areas of the state. That's kind of my big focus right now. And it's kind of neat because I use a lot of different data sets within the state, like ODOT TIMS boring logs, and then like soil information and water wells to try to figure out where there might be material left behind by the glaciers. So it's kind of like a little puzzle between, what's going on at this well, then what's going on at this well, and then I'm able to kind of, locate where things end and begin and draw in the valleys and make a map out of it.
What do you enjoy most about the work you do?
Oh, I think the variety of it. I'm never doing any one thing for too long. It depends, in non-COVID times, it depends on the season. So my field season for the karst work is like October through early April. So I'm going out in the field a lot. We're doing maybe 1 to 2 days in the field per week, depending on what we have going on in the office. And then in the summer, there's a lot of outreach stuff. The state fairs in the summer, we have a big presence at that, the OhioDNR park. And then spring is usually when we have a lot of our mineral shows. So we're going to different mineral shows in the state, so I'm involved with that as well. And then in between is peppered with whatever else fits in.
How do you impact the lives of Ohioans?
It's a couple different ways, I would say. So through webinars like this, been doing a couple of these. We have them on YouTube that other people can look at too. A lot of the outreach stuff. I love going out to classes and to our GeoWalk and really trying to get, younger generations really jazzed about geology and, natural resources in general as well. And then I think that, the coursework that we do isn't used by everybody, but we do have some people that are super interested in it. And then, it's also used by construction companies and people trying to build and making sure that their land isn't going to sink.
Sorry, Jackie.
Go ahead, Katie.
We have a great question from Miles in the Q&A. How many sinkholes are in Ohio?
I do not know that number off the top of my head. I know I think it's upwards of 17,000 that we have identified and looked at and gone, either that is a sinkhole confirmed or we think it's a sinkhole and we're going to hope to confirm it. I hope Douglas, my coworker that also does the sinkhole work with me, isn't watching and going, that's not how many there are. But I'm pretty sure because we just surpassed that number when we were looking at data for a different area of the state this past year. So there are a lot. But they're not like Florida where they're going to eat your house and then you inside of it. The sinkholes here are pretty slow growing and they're in isolated parts of the state normally. So you don't need to, mostly people worry about driving their tractor into one. But sometimes, they can, populate in areas where people are, so.
Do you just investigate sinkholes on state of Ohio property or also on private property?
We investigate them on every kind of property. We do a lot of going to, what we do is we figure out where we think they are in the office and then we'll go into the field with our iPad and then try to collect that data that way. So we'll go to people's houses and be like, hi, hello, we're with the state. We think you have sinkholes. And 9 times out of 10, actually probably more than that, a lot of people are very enthusiastic about us coming to look at these sinkholes because they're aware of them on their property. So they let us on and they show us around, or they say, hey, just go look at it, that's fine. And they'll sometimes ask what this is for. We can send them maps of, what we think that they have. So it's a little more interaction than I would normally have thought right off the bat.
How would you define a mentor? Can you talk about a time when a mentor was or would have been helpful to you in your career?
Okay. Mentor to me feels more of like someone that you can go to and rely on and kind of maybe vent, or you have an open communication. And then there's the exchange of, the mentor's information to the mentee. I think it's kind of hard to figure that word when I look back at like my time at OhioDNR, because in my head, I'm like, well, I didn't have like a set mentor where I go, this is who my person is. But then I think about it and it's a lot of my coworkers, especially the ones that have been at the survey for years and years longer than I have. It's sort of it takes a village kind of situation. So I didn't have any one mentor, but coming in, there were a lot of people that definitely made it their priority, or at least helped me as often as they could and that I wanted, to answer my questions and point me in the right path and be like, well, what do you think about this? And like include me in discussions. So it was never any one person, and coming in, I did have a bunch of people that I could call upon, and I still do. And now I think I'm somehow becoming that person also, so who knows?
I know personally, since you are also part of the Women's Network, that I think you are a mentor to the rest of us and, as a whole for that group of women. So thank you for being part of that. But so Who to you is the most inspiring female role model or leader, and why?
That's so hard for me because like I have in my idea this kind of village mentality. I think right now we have a lot of really good female leadership in politics. Like I look at AOC and I see her and I'm like, she's doing amazing. She's standing up for herself. She's speaking out against all of these different things. So every time someone says something, I immediately just go to her, even though I don't think of her as like my mentor. I just think she has a lot of these qualities about her that I would want my daughter to have, or my friends' daughters, or honestly anyone to have. So I think that she embodies a lot of that for a lot of people.
What is one piece of advice you would give to a young woman looking to pursue a career in the natural resources field? So in other words, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were at that stage of your life?
Oh, I wish I had networked more. May be hard for some people to believe that, but when I came into my job, I was a little bit more shy than I am now. And I really wouldn't use that word to describe me, but it was intimidating, because geology is a program that, back when I started here 6 years ago, it's male dominated. So there weren't many female geologists I could turn to. And that kind of turned into a thing where it's like, well, then be the female geologist you need. I would say the advice is, it's going to be intimidating, do it anyway. There's a lot of things in life that are going to be scary, and then you just kind of keep doing it until it happens. And then you're like, I did it. Okay. Actually, fake it till you make it has been really good for me. There have been some times in my past where I'm like, you know what, I don't feel very this or that. I'm like, well, I'm just going to act like that and believe I can be that until I am that. And I kind of became what I wanted to be. I still got a ways to go, but I'm doing all right, I think.
Brittany, we have some really great questions in the Q&A box. So the first one is, how long have you been working at OhioDNR, and what is one way you think you have grown or developed as a geologist?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I started here, I think it's 6.5 years ago. I always get the date fuzzy. It was 2014 is when I started. And what was the rest of the question? Sorry, I started thinking about time.
So how long have you been working at OhioDNR, and what is one way you think you have grown or developed as a geologist?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I would say coming in, since I just have a bachelor's, I felt, and sometimes I still feel, that my education isn't as phenomenal as it could be, but the experience of working at OhioDNR has taught me so much more than I think I could ever learn anywhere else. And I think it's just taught me a lot. One, we work with the mapping program, ArcGIS, that I learned to use extensively. That's been really great at, expanding my horizons. We have different educational resources, and just the people that I work with. We'll talk about something like, oh, well, when I was in field camp back in whatever times, we learned about this rock. I'm like, oh, I didn't go to field camp there. I don't know about this rock. So it's just different experiences of people, especially with, the people that I work with. It really brings in just kind of rounds me out a little bit. I will say, Ohio is a sedimentary state, so we don't have a whole lot of igneous or metamorphic structures to work with, but I do sometimes pay attention to our subsurface folks when they talk about things. And then we'll get rock IDs sometimes that I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And someone will be like, I think this is that. And I'm like, I will remember that for later in case I encounter it again. And then my coworker, Douglas, did message me. He says we do have over 17,000 sinkholes. So I was correct. Thank you, Douglas.
Yeah, I love that. There's such a wealth of knowledge that's accumulative through everyone in the workplace. There's another really great question. I love this question. What is the coolest rock you have ever found while working?
And I prepped, I was hoping somebody would ask this, so I put my rocks next to me. I'm sure if anyone has seen my fossil webinar, they know about this one. But this is my coolest one. This is my favorite. Actually, I have two, I'll show two. This is a fossilized stromatoporoid, which is a type of sea sponge. And so it's been almost entirely replaced with like siliciclastic material and a little bit of like crystal growth inside. And it's just really big and heavy and cool, and I love it a lot. And everyone knows it. Oh God, it's gonna fall over also. And my second favorite is these shark teeth that I found a couple of years ago. So I prepped for that question.
Next up is a presentation that Madison has prepared for us.
Wait 1 second. We have one more question. So we have a question from Jeff Brittany before we move on to Madison. He says, how does ODNR decide where to place all of the geologists? Are they spread out all over the place, or are they at one headquarters? So I'll let you take that.
Yeah, that's a good question. All of us, well, sorry, let me preface this. Most of us are at central office in Columbus. And then we have our core repository up near Alum Creek. And that is where our seismic network is kind of run out of. So we have some of our seismologists up there, and then everyone else is down at central office. And then we do travel to pretty much every area of the state. Like a lot of my work recently, last year, we were in Cincinnati area doing the karst work. Before that, you know, at Highlands and Adams County. But I know some of my coworkers have been up near Grand Lake St. Mary's. Another coworker's been up near the Cleveland area looking at the shale and everything like that. So we really go all over, but we are all centralized in the office. And Alum Creek isn't that far from the office, but they are separate. We still.
Okay, and when you were answering that, we did have one more question come in. So before we pass it to Madison, we'll ask this question that they said, how long have you been doing your job?
I've been with the survey for 6 years. And then previous to that, I was a mud logger on an oil rig in Oklahoma for like 6 months, and that was not for me. So then I got this job, which is infinitely better for me. So over 6 years now.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany. And Madison, you can take over now.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys so much. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. All right, how's that look on your guys' end?
Looks good.
Awesome. All right, well, I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Madison Perry, and I am a graphic artist for the Geological Survey. So in my position, I translate the artistic needs for the department. I collaborate with professionals to illustrate figures for publications, design graphics for multiple purposes, and create social media content to promote engagement. So just to start off with a little bit about myself, I've always had a passion for art and nature, and I've really enjoyed and loved learning about biology and paleontology even in my spare time. And I've also had an affinity for fantasy and folklore, and you can see that the two cross in my personal work, which is what you see up here on the screen, especially with the squirrel butterflies. But after graduating high school, I decided I wanted to pursue art as a career, and I attended the Columbus College of Art and Design, graduating with a bachelor's degree in illustrative design. So I started my career with ODNR as an intermittent in the wildlife division, and I worked on multiple projects for them, including illustrating the 2020 Projects and Activities booklet. And I also created illustrations for multiple issues of the Wild Ohio magazine, including the Where's Walleye series. So if you're wondering why there were fish wearing hats, that went into the Wild Ohio magazine. And here's a couple of more examples that went into the interior of the 2020 booklet. So these are some of my favorite illustrations I got to do with this project, and I truly enjoy just drawing, you know, all types of critters. So after working with the Wildlife Division, I started working with the Geological Survey on a project. And that project was the Fossils of the Columbus Limestone State House Fossils Guide and Poster. And I worked very closely with our paleontologist, Mark Peter, to create hand-drawn reconstructions of fossils found in the Columbus Limestone. And I also created illustrations of the fossils themselves. And I had the opportunity of putting together the layout and the design of the poster that you see there on the left as well. So just to break down a little bit of my process, here's an example of one of the reconstructions broken down. As you can see, I like to start off with a very small sketch of the subject just to understand the basic form, and, you know, then I start breaking down individual pieces so I really understand the texture and am able to very accurately represent these scientific illustrations. And once I get a final sketch, I begin working on rendering, which just includes adding shading, texture, detail, and all of that with a graphite pencil. So you see the final filled in version there on the right. And as well as those illustrations, I create diagram illustrations for our geologists, as you see here in our geofacts number 33. I like to utilize multiple different mediums, such as Photoshop, to color my traditional pen and ink drawings. And using the tools in Photoshop, I'm also able to digitally paint and edit traditional drawings depending on the desired result for each graphic. So if you're wondering what digital painting looks like, I have my little tablet here. So this just plugs into my computer, and I'm able to write and draw just like you would with a pencil and paper. So it can get a little,
Can you hold that up again, Madison? I was enlarging the screen, sorry.
Yeah, I figured with the background. Yeah, so it just plugs right into the computer, and it's just like drawing with a tablet. So you have to kind of get used to the hand-eye coordination, but once you get used to that, it's pretty fun. So here's an example of what one of my drawings looks like scanned in without any editing in Photoshop or any coloring. This is straight off the scanner flatbed. So you can see, you know, some of the little bits of paper behind it and all of that, and even some of the pencil marks. So this is what it looks like after I bring it into Photoshop, clean it up a little bit, and add some color. And this is before also we add the annotations and the words on the diagram itself. And just kind of flip back so you can get another before and after. So as well as illustrations, I provide graphic design skills to the survey. I had the opportunity of working with the Ohio Seismic Network in redesigning their logo, which you can see at the top here. And as well as that, I also helped to design signs, posters, edit presentations, or any other small graphics someone may need. And here's a few more examples of graphics that I've laid out for our new website, including laying out the map and designing the table for the map of Ohio meteorites, which was a fun project, as well as creating the graphic for the radon symbol there up in the corner. And this year, I've also been a part of launching the Ohio Geological Survey Facebook page. So I create content such as the Throwback Thursday series, and editing photos and postings and things for banners. So as well as coming up with that, I create activities to engage the public, like the wire wrapping fossil activity there at the bottom. And one of my favorite activities that I have created so far for the Facebook page is the number 19 hands-on earth science activity, which is a pumpkin carving. So this was for our Halloween campaign, and I had a fun idea to create these templates that you can print out and tape onto a pumpkin and, you know, carve away. So it was a bit of a challenge for me as well to really, okay, try and understand how this, you know, would work and how much of a pumpkin that you can cut out without the surface area just completely, you know, breaking down. And a big shout out to Brittany for carving the dunk pumpkin that you can see there in the middle photo. And this is just a little sneak peek into what I'm currently working on and a little bit more of my process behind drawing specimens. So I like to work right from the actual specimen itself, so I'm able to see the different dimension and really understand the texture, as you can see with the flat brachiopod here. All right, and at this time, if you guys have any questions, all right.
Madison, we have some great questions in the Q&A, and obviously, to no surprise, folks are really impressed with your artwork. So one of the questions from Miles is, how can more young women find jobs like this as artists? Do you have any special education in this type of super accurate drawing that you do?
So I'm kind of, I've always been interested in, that's a great question. I've always been interested in realism and really accurately representing what I'm drawing. So I've always been drawn to realism and scientific illustrations. One of my favorite, you know, things as a kid was looking through our science books and seeing the illustrations, you know, that people have done of animals and things. And that was a really big inspiration for me, was seeing those. So I started, you know, working towards it. But the only prior education I've had as far as like biology and stuff is what I've done on my own, and a lot of self-research. And, you know, in this position, I've definitely learned a lot from our paleontologist, Mark. So it's been a great learning experience for me. And to the first part of that question, as long as you have an interest in art and everything, there are plenty of amazing programs at colleges all over the place. You know, community colleges have a lot of really great programs that you can look into for illustration and graphic design and all of that stuff.
Thanks, Madison. And then we had another question. One person said, your artwork is awesome. How did you get to be this good at illustrating?
Oh, thank you so much. So like I said before, I've always had a pencil in my hand ever since I was a kid. And I've just always been drawing and really working at my skill. So I can confidently say I've put in my 10,000 hours of drawing and working. And it's been, you know, an incredible experience to be able to further my portfolio with the survey.
Have you ever won any awards for your work?
I have. I haven't entered any shows recently, but I back in high school and after, you know, during college and stuff, I would enter a few shows, and the biggest prize I guess I would say I won was Best of Show for the my state fair, and I'm from Preble County, so it's a very small town, but it still meant a lot, you know. So yeah, the piece that won Best of Show was a big great horned owl drawing. That yeah, I'd say that was probably the thing that sticks out in my mind right now.
Awesome. So you kind of touched on it earlier about what made you interested in drawing realistic scientific pictures. Do you want to elaborate more? We had another question on it.
Yeah, sure. So once I started looking more into, you know, the scientific illustration, I did a little bit of homework and looking into, you know, some of the other artists that have done, you know, incredible work in the past with paleo art and artists that are doing it today. But paleo art specifically is something that's always interested me, and I love seeing the representations of fossils and, you know, prehistoric creatures. And there's quite an interesting history and lineage behind the you know, the trade itself, because in the very beginning, it was a lot harder for artists to really be able to tell without the scientific evidence, you know, what these creatures looked like. So seeing some of the early drawings of, you know, for example, the saber tooth and things, they can look a little wonky and a little interesting. So yeah, I guess I would say just, you know, really being interested in other art and being inspired by other artists is a big thing for me as well.
We have a lot of really great questions coming in the Q&A. Do you have a dream geology project that you want to illustrate someday?
That's a great question. We have I guess a dream project for me would probably be doing, you know, stuff that that you know, similar to the things that I'm already doing. Quite honestly, like doing the things now is a dream job in itself. And if I could draw some more furry prehistoric creatures, that would be great. But you know, I love my trilobites and I love my crinoids and all of my you know, Devonian critters. But yeah.
Zoe asks, what was the hardest and most difficult illustration you've created?
Another great question. So I'll pop back here to this slide. I would definitely say the illustrations that went into this were the most time consuming by far, because doing the work of reconstructing these guys took quite a bit of time and a lot of going back and forth between you know, me and Mark, our paleontologist. So I would come up with these sketches and we would sit down and we would discuss and talk about things, and he would, you know, do a little bit more research, and he's like, well, you know, maybe we should change this, because as you see, the nautiloid cephalopod up in the corner there, the little curly squid guy, he started off looking very, very different from the first sketch I ever did of him. So we started piecing together, you know, examples of real life critters. So for the eye, I looked at, you know, a cuttlefish, and for the tentacles, I was looking at a species of another nautiloid, and those kind of informed me to piece together, you know, almost Frankenstein these guys back together. So I would say this is definitely one of the most time-consuming projects that I've worked on so far, but it was very, very worth it.
I think myself and everyone watching this presentation is never going to look at the artwork in those publications the same. They're spectacular. Miles wants you to, he wants to know where you went to school.
So I went to high school at Twin Valley South in West Alexandria. Ohio, which is about 45 minutes west of Dayton. And then after graduating there, I went on directly to the Columbus College of Art and Design, which is right here in downtown Columbus. I don't know if anybody has ever driven by, but if you see a big red art sign, that's the heart of campus there in downtown Columbus.
Okay, so I think that wrapped up our questions. Katie or Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong there, but thank you both for presenting, Brittany and Madison, and for your help, Jackie and Katie. Clearly, you guys are resilient female leaders in the Division of Geological Survey, and I know the department is proud to have you guys on the team. So I just want to give a quick preview of what's coming next as far as our webinars go. Tomorrow is going to be our All About Eagles program, so tune in tomorrow at 10 if you want to learn about the American eagle, which is a fascinating creature. And then next month, we have a whole lineup of some fun things to do, such as an introduction to raising fish. We're going to be doing winter bird feeding tips and tricks. We did one similar to that recently, but we're going to reveal some new information during that episode there. And then we're going to do an episode on nature's architects, which is the American beaver. We have a fun one on Ohio's woodpeckers as well to wrap up the month of January. So thanks again, everybody, for joining this episode of She's a Force of Nature, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.